What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today we have for you one of our favorite builds of all time in Diablo. This is a T13 speed farming setup for the Barbarian. It is the Volcano Barb. This build is by far and away one of the most fun builds to play in Diablo, in my humble opinion. Now, this used to be a Legacy of Nightmare setup, so it was only able to do T10, T11, but with the buffs to the Mightverse set, Volcano Barb is back, and it's a lot of fun to play, really fast for T13. So without further ado, let's get into the Volcano Barb. So I want to first caveat by saying I'm not trying to sell this as the fastest T13 setup for Barb. Furious Charge Barb and Whirlwind Barb are going to be very strong T13 options next season. But this is, in our opinion, the funnest build to play for T13, possibly in the game, and definitely for Barb. So let's get into the skills. Now, this build revolves around two skills. Earthquake, which will deal 4800% weapon damage as fire over 8 seconds to all enemies within 18 yards. And of course, what the build is named after. Avalanche with Volcano. Chunks of molten lava are randomly launched at nearby enemies, dealing 6600% weapon damage as fire over 5 seconds. And how are we juicing this up? The Mightverse set, which says the 6-piece bonus increases the damage of Earthquake and Avalanche by 5600%. That's a huge damage multiplier. We're also using, just like we did in Speedquake, the Focus and Restraint, which says when you hit with a resource generating attack, you get 50% increased damage, and when you spend, you get 50% increased damage, giving you a flat 125% damage multiplier when you have both effects going. We also get 200% additive damage for Earthquake on Blade of Tribes. We're using Bane the Powerful, which gives 20% increased damage after killing an elite, plus 15% increased damage versus elites. We're using Bane the Trap, which gives us X amount of damage for enemies under the effect of control impairing effects. And then lastly, we're using Taiguk, which gives us X% increased damage for 1.5 seconds when you spend a resource on channeled skill. This effect stacks up to 10 times. We also get armor for every stack, which is just a nice secondary effect. So immediately you're gonna look at all this and you're gonna think, well, what's the gimmick here? This build revolves around the Blade of Tribes legendary effect, which says Warcry and Threatening Shout cause an avalanche and an earthquake. So every time I cast Threatening Shout or Warcry, I'm going to call down a volcano and an earthquake. Look how cool that looks, guys. Every time we cast either one, we get an avalanche and an earthquake. Now, you also notice I don't even have earthquake on my bar, so how am I casting earthquake? The way Blade of Tribes works is it will pick the default rune if it's not slotted. So if you didn't have Volcano slotted, it would pick the base rune that deals 2400% weapon damage. And the same thing goes for earthquake, which just happens to be fire, dealing 4800% weapon damage as fire. So when we cast Threatening Shout, it's casting our Volcano because we have it slotted, and it's casting the base rune of Earthquake, which happens to be fire. You might be thinking, okay, great. You can cast Threatening Shout once every 10 seconds, cast Warcry, once every 20 seconds. It's pretty crap damage, Fluff, and you would be right. But in this setup, we are running in-geom, which says your skill cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. So when you proc in-geom here, you're going to be able to spam Threatening Shout, Warcry ever so often. And behind you, you're just going to leave this crazy death trail of volcanoes and earthquakes. It's awesome. So just to show you guys what that looks like, here we have an elite pack. So boom, we've killed him, we've procced in-geom, and now you can see we can just sit here and spam Volcano with Threatening Shout and Warcry as often as we can. And we just leave this crazy amount of volcanoes behind us. It's amazing. Now, other skills, we're using Whirlwind with Hurricane, and we're using Whirlwind for quite a few different reasons here. One, because the rune itself pulls enemies towards you from 35 yards away, which is really nice because, as you guys know, Volcano and Earthquake both do their damage in a concentrated area, so great. Pulling those mobs in is awesome. Another reason is to proc the resource spending attack piece of Restraint. You also get the 2-piece bonus, which says reduce the cooldown of Avalanche, Earthquake, Leap, Ground Stomp by 1 second for every 30 you spend. This isn't going to be like a reason you're using this, it's just a nice addition. We're also using Mantle of Channeling in the cube, which says while channeling, increase your damage by 25% and reduce the damage you take by 25%. That's just a nice bonus as well. And then lastly, you're using Taiguk, and the only way you can juice up Taiguk is by using Whirlwind. It's a channeling spell. When you're spinning around, you're juicing up your earthquake damage by a lot. Other skills, we're using Furious Charge with Merciless Assault not only for its raw, awesome mobility, but also it will proc Band of Might, which says after casting Furious Charge, Ground Stomp or Leap, take 80% reduced damage for 8 seconds. So it's going to be really, really important that you charge anything before you attack, because if you don't have this damage mitigation up, you're basically dead. But with this slotted rune, you can basically charge from pack to pack, trying to find the next elite pack, which is really, really nice. And then, of course, after you proc in-geom, you can literally just spam the skill as much as you want. You don't have to worry about having targets because it has a fewer than 10-second cooldown. This can really help you find that next elite pack, because again, this is an in-geom based build, so it's very, very important to find that next elite pack as fast as you possibly can. You guys are gonna see that you're significantly weaker without in-geom proc up, because you're not gonna be able to spam Threatening Shout. You're not going to be able to get Warcry up 100% of the time. Other skills, Threatening Shout with Falter. Again, it's a 25% damage boost. Awesome. Plus, it's needed for the Blade of Tribes legendary effect, so it's an absolute must. Ratha Berserker with Insanity. We get all those juicy effects: crit chance, attack speed, dodge chance, movement speed. All great things to have in T13. And then, of course, we get 50% increased damage. And between bul-kathos, reducing that cooldown by 30%, running really high CDR in the build itself, plus in-geom procking every time we kill an elite, you're going to have really good uptime on Ratha Berserker, which means a ton of damage for your volcanoes, a ton of damage for your earthquake. Lastly, Warcry with impunity, more mitigation. You can basically run whatever rune you want here, though, to be honest. It is T13. But of course, Warcry is super important because, again, it procs your Blade of Tribes legendary effect. For the passives, again, bul-kathos, reduce cooldown on Insanity. Berserker Rage, when in-geom is up, you're going to be at 100% Fury because you're able to spam Threatening Shout, so your Fury is just going to go up, 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 up. So having a 25% additional damage modifier is amazing. Ruthless, you know, being able to do 40% additional damage, basically a third of the time, is just amazing. And then Rampage is a T13 build, and once you proc in-geom, everything dies. So you'll have this up basically 100% of the time. It's really, really strong. And then we are using Hellfire Amulet in this build as well. We've gone with the Brawler passive because of how Whirlwind with Hurricane pulls mobs in, and you're just going right into the density with Furious Charge. This effect's going to be up pretty much 100% of the time. Other important pieces, we are running Cheleknik's Chain, which says using Warcry increases your movement speed by up to 40% for 10 seconds. You're basically going to cast Warcry off cooldown here, especially when in-geom's up. You're going to get that 40% increased movement almost 100% of the time, and it procs it for your teammates as well. So this is a really fun build to use in a group. Doesn't require unity, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. Bracers, we are running Nemesis, which obviously in-geom and Nemesis we talk about all the time. They are an amazing combination. Peas and carrots, guys. Now I will also say you have a ton of variety and options available to you when you play this build. If you don't like fire, you can play cold. You would just pick up either Glacier or Snow-Capped Mountain, and even drop Ratha Berserker to pick up Chilling Earth instead. Very, very cool way to run this as well. Maybe you don't like fire, maybe you don't like cold. How about physical? Because you can basically drop Avalanche, because the default rune of Avalanche is physical. And pick up Earthquake with Cave-In. This makes your Threatening Shout and Warcry cast, you know, physical, Earthquake, and Avalanche. Plus it has that additional effect of pulling mobs in. So this can be also really great for a group. And then, you know, probably not as good as the other three options, but still very fun, is you could run, you know, the Lightning Rune on the Earthquake instead. And then you would keep, you know, Ratha Berserker. You would drop Avalanche from your bar because there's no Lightning Rune on Avalanche, unfortunately. But still cool options depending on what you like. You know, maybe if you don't want to run a strictly cooldown based build, you can also drop Ratha Berserker and bul-kathos and just run Molten Fury, or even if you like, you could run Giant Stride. Giant Stride would by far and away be the best choice if the Tremors stacked. I've been begging and pleading for Blizzard to allow this to stack since the dawn of time, but unfortunately it still does not. So you'll only ever get one of those Tremors to follow you, which is still a crazy amount of damage. But if this were to stack, it would be an obscene amount of damage. So we talked about gear, we talked about skills, talked about gems. Basically gonna run this, you know, like a high CDR build like you would anything else. Gloves, strength, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction. Shoulders, strength, vite, earthquake damage, and cooldown reduction would be the best. Helmet, strength, vite, crit chance with socket. Chest, strength fight, earthquake damage, and sockets. On the belt, strength fight, all res, and life would be the best. We don't care about maximum fury here. Pants, strength fight, all res, and sockets. Boots, strength fight, armor, and all resistance would be the best. Whirlwind's doing like no damage here whatsoever, so definitely don't roll for whirlwind damage. On the weapon, since it is T13, you could run damage, strength, cooldown reduction, and earthquake damage as high as you can get. Or you could even do life per fury spent to just heal an obscene amount. Bracers, fire, strength fight, and crit chance. Same thing with Speed Quake here on the FNR. You basically want the dream rolls, which would be crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction, socket on both the focus and restraint. And then on the necklace, you would want fire, crit damage, crit chance, and one of the passives that we talked about in this video. But that's basically going to do it for this guide. Again, this build is so much fun to play. I almost wish there was a set designed around just this for the Barbarian. And while I did enjoy the lawn build a little bit more because it would use up whirlwind damage, it made use of a lot of different legendary effects. The fact that it's somewhat viable again through the Might of Earth set is fine by me. I love playing this build, and I think you guys are going to like it a lot too. As always, big shout out to all my subscribers and supporters on Twitch and YouTube. You guys make this all happen. Any juice you guys send our way is much appreciated. I can't say enough. It keeps us going. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comment section below. We do the best job we can to get to those as fast as possible. And as always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.